We are joined, there he is, the man of the hour, Laith Marouf. Laith Marouf. I'm sorry, I'm very congested. I have my these infirmities are trying to take me down, but I'm still here nonetheless. Laith Marouf, award-winning multimedia producer and broadcasting law consultant. Laith, welcome to the show, man. How you doing this morning? You doing okay?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Jamal, for having me. Good
No,
to be
man.
here.
Thank you for joining me. I want to get into what is something that was rather surprising in Syria. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. Israel was running a convoy through right here. DD geopolitics is hitting this. So apparently, Israel ran a convoy through Syria with local Syrian tribes getting involved to attack the convoy. Now, it is well known that Jelani hasn't fired a shot in anger at the Israelis, despite the fact that he's saying he's, this Muslim caliphate, and that he's now ruler of a country that he doesn't necessarily protect from Israeli aggression or expansion into the country itself. Is this story correct? I mean, this was seemed like a local resistance that sprang up. Um, what is it in Nawa? I guess where it says large number of Syrian locals have mobilized in order to push back on the Israeli occupation of that land. Do you have any information on this? I just saw the story this morning. That's why I didn't say anything about it beforehand. I'm sorry.
Yes. So Nawa is in the Daraa province. Daraa is just on the border with Jordan. And the area we're talking about is in the basin of the Yarmouk River that, kind of defines the border between Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. The Israelis, over the last 3 months, the area that they have occupied in both Quneitra province, that's the foothills of the Golan Heights, Daraa, and the countryside of Damascus. In this area that they've occupied, they've already ethnically cleansed the land. They expelled all the local inhabitants. We're talking around 200 something thousand people have already been expelled. So anyone that was kind of ambivalent about mounting resistance to the Israelis in the south of Syria have now seen what will happen if the Israeli military enters your village or town. The outcome is clear. You're going to be expelled from your land, and the world is not going to even report one word about it in mainstream media. So it was inevitable that the population of the southern parts of Syria will carry arms individually, and that there will be a rise of a local resistance, especially given that the Wahhabi death squads that are occupying Damascus and declare themselves the government, the HTS, are agents of the Mossad, agents of CIA, and they will not be resisting the dismantlement of Syria or the occupation of its land or the depopulation of its territory. As we see, the HTS itself is involved in a very similar program in the west of the country, in the coast, in Latakia, Tartus, Hama, and Homs, where the HTS is also ethnically cleansing villages and towns of their Alawi, Shia, and Christian populations. And so these are these two programs are joined together and have been planned together: the ethnic cleansing of HTS and the ethnic cleansing of the Zionists in Syria. And so clearly the Zionists were surprised at this ambush that was conducted by the locals, and some of their soldiers are injured, and they retaliated with a mass bombardment campaign of South Syria, the Daraa province. And simultaneously, by the way, this is another story, the Turkish military has been expanding its presence in Syria and were setting up to control and occupy the T4 airport and base beside Palmyra in the desert of Syria. And yesterday, part of the bombardment that the Zionists conducted was not only in the south of Syria, but they conducted 50 air raids in Damascus, Hama, and Homs, where the T4 base is. They destroyed completely the military airport of Hama and the T4. And there's already reports of at least 4 Turkish engineers that were with the occupying force trying to kind of fix up the T4 to fit the needs of the Turkish military. Those 4 engineers are killed. We haven't heard one word from Turkey about this, which shows you again. So there's a rivalry happening between Turkey and Israel, both of which are vassals of the United States, over, the loot of Syria. And as we see, the Israelis are not wanting Turkey to get close to the southern parts of Syria.
From my understanding, Turkey was setting up air defenses in Syria in order to prevent these type of air raids over Syria. But correct me if I'm wrong. Am I missing that story?
Yeah, you are right. But you see, both of them are using the same systems. The air defenses that Turkey has are already in the hands of Israel, the same models. And, they know how to get around it. And most probably, the Americans have given Israel the back door to everything, like they've given them the back door to our iPhones and our WhatsApp. I'm sure Israel has backdoors to any of the NATO systems. And so Turkey is stupid that it hasn't developed its own air defenses like Iran did.
Yeah. One of the other stories I wanted to hit, and I'm glad you brought up HTS. Al-Jilani is apparently making peace overtures to Israel, apparently trying to normalize relations with Israel as it bombs Damascus, which is that is a mind-blowing thing, right? You're claiming yourself ruler of a particular country. Israel is bombing the country, and your response is, hey, let's make diplomatic relations. This is in addition to apparently conversations that Jilani is apparently going to have with Donald Trump or someone within the Trump administration. And of course, trying to make peace overtures to Europe, etc. There is an hypothesis, and I think the hypothesis has legs, that because Egypt and Jordan wouldn't take the Palestinians that the Israelis are effectively killing en masse, that a deal could be made with Jilani to port them into Syria. Meaning, okay, Egypt's not going to take them, Jordan's not going to take them, but we can take them to Syria since Jilani is effectively a puppet of these forces. Anyway, what's your take on that? I mean, do you think that has legs? Do you think that's a no-go nonsense? Give me your thoughts.
I mean, look, where would the Israelis drop the Palestinian population? In Syria? And clearly Syria has, as currently even Jolani has no control of the territory and or the monopoly on the use of force within the borders of Syria. Therefore, if you go and drop, this is why it's illogical, and it's not going to happen. Not because Jolani wouldn't, kiss any Zionist behind and eat their feces if they asked him to, but the Israelis themselves would not do it because Syria is a circus right now. It's a no man's land, and if you drop Palestinians there, millions of them. Of course, they're going to carry arms, and you're going to have a headache from within Syria that cannot control its own territory or force the Palestinians to disarm, right? So they'd rather that the Palestinians, if they are expelled to neighboring countries, that they are expelled into vassal countries that are dictatorships that have full control of the use of violence within their territory, like Jordan and Egypt, and or expel them to faraway lands like Madagascar and or Indonesia. This is like actually right now options that the Zionists are putting out in their media, sending the Palestinians to Madagascar. Okay, so geographic distance. So in reality, all this talk about expelling the Palestinians, because it is not going to happen in either Jordan or Egypt, it means it's not going to happen, period. Therefore, we see the return to the genocidal policy. And that's what we're witnessing together happening in Gaza right now, the return to full genocide in broad daylight.
Is Israel really going to try to kill 1.2 million or 1.4 or 1.6, whatever that number is, Palestinians? And if not, what is the point of this? Meaning, I understood, look, I get it if the goal is, okay, we're going to make like so inhospitable that people are going to leave. Now, this is something that Netanyahu put out. He even said, look, we're not hiding the ball anymore. We're not pretending. Our job or our goal is to get people to voluntarily leave as we murder and slaughter on those people. Is that even possible for people to quote unquote voluntarily leave, even though we know it's not voluntary? If you're killing people and, rape, killing, murder, etc., that's not voluntary. But where would they go? It's this part that completely confuses me. Egypt is not going to take them. Jordan is not going to take them. The people are effectively stuck in an open air ghetto. Where are they supposed to go? And if you're not going to kill 1.4 million people, then what is the point of this?
I personally think that they will kill all 2 million Palestinians in Gaza if they're not stopped. I am 100% sure of that. And I give you the evidence right now. I mean, for 17 months, the genocide is ongoing. And now we got to a point where it's not even in the headlines in the West. And the Zionists are openly talking about genocide and openly acting genocide without hiding it anymore or lying about it anymore, because there's no repercussion, because the Western capitals within the imperial domains are willing to burn their own countries to at the altar of Zionism if they are asked to do so. They'll as we see in the United States, and will jail their own and mass deport, all for the eyes of Israel. Okay, so look at what happened 2 nights ago. There was 16 Red Cross and nurses and paramedics kidnapped from the hospital of the Red Cross and tortured, tied up, stripped naked. And when another group of paramedics in Red Cross ambulance came to save them, they were also kidnapped, beaten, tied up, and then they were all executed one by one with bullets to the head and buried in a mass grave with the ambulance itself. Okay, so this is, I mean, honestly.
By the way, this footage,
and
just
the
for the audience to know,
Yeah.
this is the ambulance that they're pulling out of the mass grave with the workers who apparently had their hands tied behind their backs after being executed by the Israelis.
Yeah, so I mean, the Nazis and Hitler hid the Holocaust and their genocide of Jewish and other peoples in Europe. They were not displaying it proudly. I think the Zionists, and they rightly conclude this, that the whole West is behind them and they can enact genocide and proudly promote it as long as nobody is gonna fight them. Okay, if they can kill anybody and everybody that fights them anywhere and round up citizens of Western countries at their own order, at their behest, and destroy all the educational system and graduate studies programs that the U.S. is proud of, destroy media rights, destroy freedom of speech, everything that could all be done for Israel at its behest. So why would they stop the genocide? Until there is somebody who can force them to stop it, it will not stop.
But you don't see that for look, I gotta be honest, I've been shocked at this myself. Um, I didn't think this could happen. My point of view of the world has fundamentally changed over this. I mean, the Houthis, and let's get to the Houthis for a moment. Nasrallah has been still firing shots. Apparently, they knocked down multiple drones from the United States. They've been firing at aircraft carriers that have been out in the Red Sea. And this is despite the attacks that the US has been launching. Many of these attacks aren't even at military targets. Water target, for example, took out water for thousands of people. Give me your thoughts on this. I mean, they have been trying, like consistently trying to, let's say, create at the very least a hedge in a way that no other Arab Muslim country has even attempted.
Yeah, and they have, I think, been achieving remarkable things. And this is the power of geography. Look at the geography, and obviously the will of the people. But look at the geography of Yemen that creates this will. Okay, it's a mountainous country, and it's sitting on one of the most important waterways and in the world, and it's because of those two things and its ingenuity of its people are able to right now project power against American naval prowess. And so, in the last 72 hours, two MQ-9 drones, now I think it's 17 or 18 drones in in a year and a half.
Mhm.
This is, I think it's like over $500 million in drones that the US lost. Close to half of its fleet of MQ-9s have been down now by Yemen. The US doesn't have many of these. You think they have hundreds of them? They don't. Okay, so it's and of course they are able to hit the aircraft carriers, the destroyers, the frigates, and hit targets inside the Zionist colony, avoiding the THAAD and the David Sling and every other, the Arrow system and Iron Dome and everything. So this is important because now we can see that the United States, if it wants to go to war with Iran, listens from what happened in Yemen.
Mhm.
Number one is the American Navy is an easy target. If Yemen is able to hit it with this limited number of missiles and supplies and what have you, what does thousands of hypersonic missiles that that Iran has will do to American navies and bases in the region? So clearly, the United States, if it enters into a war with Iran, it must expect that all its naval assets and all its bases in the region will be destroyed completely. Okay, and this means there's around 50-60,000 American soldiers in Western Asia, from Turkey to the Emirates or Oman, and a few other thousand more in the Horn of Africa, that those all will be immediate casualties. Okay, they will not survive any war with Iran. And this is why we see the Americans bringing in the B-2 and B-52 bombers to the Diego Garcia Island chain, because right now that's the only place that the US believes it can bombard Iran from, and that those aircrafts will somehow survive. And that's, so it is a threatening gesture that Trump just did, and openly, moving these B-2s and B-52s there. But the question is the United States willing to sacrifice 50,000 plus soldiers in a span of minutes to
That's
conduct
the
this
question.
campaign?
That is the question. I mean, do you think Trump is bluffing on this with the idea of trying to get a better deal through the rule force in that sense? Because you're right. I mean, the reality of it is Iran could hit Israel directly at this point. I mean, they could take the gloves off. They could hit those American bases. They could hit Saudi oil fields and some of these other Quisling governments. From my understanding, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and some of the other states came together and effectively said, look, we're not going to allow our land or air to be used in order to hit Iran. Um, do you think Trump is bluffing on this? Because you're right. It is unpredictable in regards to where this spirals into.
Yeah, look, we have just heard a statement from American government officials saying that the body of laws that has been in effect, international laws since World War II, and the bodies of organizations that govern that are not good for the time that we live in today. Okay, they're not compatible. And we just saw Bulgaria, withdraw from the ICC to
That was Hungary.
allow Netanyahu. Sorry.
I thought that was Hungary.
Oh, sorry,
Or,
Hungary. Sorry, it's neighbor Hungary. I'm sorry, I mix up sometimes between
you're
Hungary
fine.
and Bulgaria. So Hungary withdraw from the ICC and to allow Netanyahu to land there on a visit. So I've been saying this for a year now, if not more, that we have entered a new era, that the United Nations and international laws that were created after World War II are now collapsing. And we're in the same moment right after World War I, when the League of Nations made it illegal to colonize, but while at the same time allowing the UK and France to have a mandate over the Arabic peoples, which pissed off Italy and Japan, and they said, well, it's colonization in another name mandate, and that's what it was. Palestine was being colonized. And we had the breakout of World War II, right? That's the collapse of the League of Nations system and the international laws that came. So right now, the United States and Israel are saying, we want to be able to occupy and colonize any land and to bombard any nation and kill any leader we wish to. And those laws of World War II, after World War II, the international law and the bodies of international organizing don't apply to us anymore. Therefore, we're going to lose all of these things. Right. Okay. So in this situation, it's clear that the United States is at war with anyone that challenges it. It's willing to go anywhere with these wars. And I believe Trump may sacrifice 50,000 American soldiers in the region. People see. Let's go back to Syria for a second. What's happening between Turkey and Israel as a fight inside Syria? This shows you how all of these even structures of NATO and imperial machinations that kept together something like Turkey and Israel, and or the UK, France, the Germany, Canada, and the US. All of those right now are going to collapse. Even NATO itself is going to collapse. Maybe EU is going to collapse. And there will be fierce competition. And you were mentioning the taxes when we came into
the tariffs.
Yes, the tariffs that Trump is putting on all of these countries that are, most of them are vassals or allies of the United States. Why is this happening? It's because the imperial arrangement was that the United States will allow lesser imperial powers that are within its domain, like France or Germany or the UK, to have access to its economy, make money out of selling products there, because the United States has dibs on the loot of the colonial holdings in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. But now the colonial holding extraction is not enough Okay. And therefore, now we see Trump putting all these tariffs on his own allies, former colonial powers that that's the imperial relation between the major central capital, the Senate in the United States, in the Capitol Hill,
Yeah.
and the lesser colonial or imperialist capitals like France, Paris, and London. That's collapsing. So there will be a fierce competition even between those over the loot of the weaker nations. Okay. And we may see these fights breaking out that we never expected, like this fight between Turkey and Israel.
How far do you think that's going to go, by the way? When it was obvious that Istanbul was working with Israel as it was effectively decapitating in Syria, even though Erdogan did not want to admit to the fact and bitterly, it's like, oh, that wasn't me, I didn't do it. But Israel came out and effectively was like, yeah, we were coordinating. There was coordination. There was obvious coordination on the ground. There was, however, concern by other parts, and some analysts pointed out that Turkey and Israel are now competing for the same territory, which is going to provoke a conflict between them two sooner rather than later. And I guess that's what we're seeing now. I guess the question is, how far do you think that's going to go?
I mean, right now Erdogan is dealing with too many things. Obviously, the internal uprising that's happening since the arrest of Istanbul's mayor,
Hmm.
and the how loose that the borders have become between Syria and Turkey, which is going to create a lot of headaches in terms of the movement of all of these Wahhabi death squads that will be harder and harder to monitor, even if you are the one that's moving them as Turkey, and or the organized crime and so forth, right?
Hmm.
And now he has 4 of his engineers killed. But obviously, Erdogan doesn't care about Turkish people and their lives. And there's a hierarchy in the worth of life. You know, all humans are equal, but some humans are more equal than others,
Yeah.
right? And so, Erdogan cannot expect that he'll be able to kill 4 Israeli engineers in return, for instance, right? So we'll see what happens there. I think Erdogan is just going to stay quiet. He's making too much money out of the Israeli economy to worry about 4 Turkish lives.
That is grotesque, to put it mildly, if that's true. I guess my thing is Israel is continuing to expand in that region. As you pointed out, Turkish influence in Syria is also continuing to expand. At some point, they're going to share the same border, right? I mean, it just seems to be that this is leading to a crisis point, any way you look at it, where Erdogan is going to have to acknowledge something. I mean, for God's sake, last year he was out there screaming that Netanyahu was Hitler, right? And then ends up in coordination with that same quote unquote Hitler to steal Syrian territory. At some point, though, these borders are going to start rubbing against each other. Meaning, from my point of view, it seems the conflict is inevitable between the two countries. Or do you think I'm wrong on this?
It is very possible, and especially given that all these tariffs that Trump is putting on the vassals and allies
Yeah.
is going to force these vassals and allies to find ways to loot other nations to make up for these tariffs. Okay, and therefore it's putting more emphasis on Turkey to loot more of Syria, loot more of Iraq, loot more of Armenia. Maybe loot more of Cyprus. Maybe see them have fights with Greece. So this fragmentation and the need of all of those different vassals to start, because Israel is not going to have this problem. Israel has never-ending blank check from all the West on its
Mm.
weapons, on its economy, on its funding, on everything. Okay, so it doesn't have the same worry as Turkey, which is going to have to find a replacement for the funds that are gonna be gone with these tariffs. So the emphasis right now is on the rule of the jungle. How hungry will Erdogan get, and the elite in Turkey? Will they be so bloodthirsty that they will attack Israel? I doubt it. I doubt it. They know the pecking order. There could be skirmishes here and there. It could be that Turkey helps local resistance get some weapons to fight Israel, okay, to keep it at bay. That could be happening. It could be that Turkey decides that Hezbollah should be allowed a stream of arms into Lebanon. Those are possibilities. But would I ever imagine Turkey fighting Israel? Maybe not in our lifetime.
Interesting. One last question. If Iran is attacked, would Israel become an immediate target from Iranian missiles?
I believe it will be. If I was somebody right now planning in the Iranian military, I would think further than that. I personally think that all the oil fields in the Arabian Peninsula should be burnt, that all the glass towers in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Riyadh should be taken down to the ground. The oil revenues for the last 80 years in the Arabian Peninsula have been financing the wars against the Arabic peoples and the subjugation of the Palestinians. It's been this backbone of Western economy that allows the West to project power into our region and have a gas station to park their militaries here. So a war with Israel today and 100 years ago should have been always number one targeted towards the local vassals. Before you can confront Israel, you have to cut all the resources and supply routes to it in the region from the vassals. And that's what much of the decolonization movement over the last 80 years in the region have been unable to do. You can't just expect to fight Israel directly while all its backers and suppliers are behind it, sitting comfortably.
No, that makes sense. I guess I understand that. I guess my thought was Iran has a missile capability that could decimate Israel. And my first thought was any attack on Iran, especially if Israel is assisting with it, Israel will be an immediate target of those missile systems by Iran, not to mention the other areas. But they've also threatened Saudi Arabia. I guess my thought is, would the relationship between, let's say, this budding relationship between Saudi Arabia, Iran, and some of the other quisling governments of the US in that region, would that stop Iran from hitting those oil fields? Or you don't think so?
Well, I think that all this talk about Saudi, Emirates, Qatar not helping in an attack on Iran
It's nonsense.
is nonsense, because obviously American flights and supply routes to Israel flew out from those countries during the genocide in Gaza and still do so, although they claim that they're not involved. But look, if Iran decides to attack Israel only, as a Palestinian, I would say Iran should drop 2 nukes over Palestine, even if that means the killing of all the Palestinians along with the Israelis. End it. 100 years of this genocide, there will be no more Israelis, and that will be the end of it. And then the 14 million Palestinians that are in the diaspora can come back and repopulate the land. But if you're going to have a war with Israel, it's clear that the Israelis and the Americans will be using nukes against Iran, and Iran should end it immediately with dropping 2 nukes over over Israel and end the story. 100 years is enough.
Laith, always appreciate you, man. Laith Marouf. He's an award-winning multimedia producer and broadcasting law consultant. You can follow Laith on Twitter at Laith Marouf. Also, Laith, where can people find you also?
Yes, my Twitter has been nuked by the Zionists a couple of years ago. But
you have Free Palestine TV, correct?
Yes. So you can go to @TV Free Palestine. That's on Twitter. And our website is freepalestine.video, where you can find the links to all our other socials, watch the daily reports from the West Bank and Lebanon that we're producing, and donate if you can.
Very cool, man. Thank you. And be safe. You have a good one.
See you.
Bye-bye.